Hi everyone. As promised, I'm going to make you a couple of videos about getting ready to draft our motion for summary judgment. So as I mentioned, there is no class on Thursday, April 28th because it is a college-wide professional development day. So I will be working, but you all have the day off from classes. But that means it's a good time to get ready to draft our motion for summary judgment. So before you watch this video, what I would like you to have in front of you, and maybe already read if possible, is the assignment itself, which is posted under assignments in Blackboard. And you will see that the second document in the assignment is a template for you to follow when drafting the motion for summary judgment. That is the document that you see here. So that's document number 1 I want you to have in front of you, is the template for drafting a motion for summary judgment. The second document that I want you to have in front of you or easily accessible is the sample motion for summary judgment. And it's 2 documents together, so it's the motion for summary judgment plus the memorandum of law in support of motion for summary judgment that come from the VA Med-Mal case that we learned about earlier this semester. That document is located under our weekly units. If you go down to the bottom where it's week 12, which is all the summary judgment documents, there's a link there for a sample summary judgment motion. So ideally, I would like you to have already read it, but if not, you should still be able to follow along in this video. So what I'm going to do in this video is talk a lot about the structure of a motion for summary judgment and the memorandum of law. I'll be discussing both of those. We will also then be getting a little bit into the argument section itself. But first, let's talk about the motion itself. As we mentioned in class, the motion, I'll call it the motion for summary judgment, but it's really 2 documents together. It's the motion document, and then it's a memorandum of law in support of a motion for summary judgment. So as I mentioned, every time there's a motion for summary judgment, it's those 2 documents together. Both of them begin with a caption, as you see here, with the name of the case, the court number, the parties are identified here, plaintiff and defendant, the title of the document, defendant's motion for summary judgment, and then a signature block with the date. I'm just going to scroll down and show you on our template document that the memorandum of law in support of motion for summary judgment, the caption looks exactly the same as it does in a case. What changes? The title changes. So this would be taking the caption that you did for the complaint and using it for all the other pleadings in that litigation. The only difference from your complaint is not only the title of the document, changing it from complaint to motion, but also now we have that civil action number. Remember, we said before that when you file the complaint, you don't know yet what its docket number is going to be, so we leave that part blank. But now we have the docket number, so you should include the docket number. And then we'll go through the parts of the memorandum of law, but if you scroll down to the bottom, you'll see there's a place for a conclusion and then a signature block and the date as well. So you'll be doing both of these documents. What I would recommend is that you can actually open this template and save it onto your computer and just type your information into this document. Or you can recreate the caption and the signature block if you'd like to, but it's not required. That is exactly why I have the template for you. Okay, so let's talk about the parts and then we'll look at the sample document together. The motion itself is really short. You can see that after the title, you're going to be inserting in your motion for summary judgment, you will be inserting just that 1 single paragraph. And you'll see in the sample document, it will say something like, defendant Donnie Davis moves for summary judgment under Massachusetts Rule of Civil Procedure 56, and incorporates and submits the memorandum of law as well. One big difference between copying the paragraph from the sample document and this one, remember the sample document is a federal case, and so that motion for summary judgment cites the federal rule of civil procedure, whereas you will be citing the Massachusetts Rule of Civil Procedure. So make sure you make that change. So again, super short, 1 paragraph, and that's it. In fact, this could even fit on one page. It might go to 2 pages once we add the signature block, but it's a short, quick, here's my motion document. The longer document is that memorandum of law in support of motion for summary judgment. So you can see it has the appropriate name. These are the sections that I want your memorandum of law to include. Right after the title, it should have an introduction paragraph that should say something like, defendant moves for summary judgment on the claim of social host liability, just, because there's no material issues of fact on whether defendant either served alcohol or controlled the supply of alcohol or knew or should have known his guest was drunk, period. Just like an introductory sentence. Then you are going to have these sections. Statement of undisputed facts, so that's your fact section, and then a section called argument. This is where your legal analysis and your new persuasive IRACs are going to go, is your argument section. And then after the argument section, you'll have a quick section called a conclusion, where you will write just one or two sentences asking the court to grant summary judgment in your client's favor. So that's your structure. So keep in mind, look how this is still an organized structure to the document, much like we did with our interoffice memos, but now the sections look different. So instead of having a question presented, brief answer, facts, and discussion, no more question presented, no more brief answer. Instead, we begin with an introductory paragraph or sentence where we ask the court to grant summary judgment. Our 2 substantive sections are the statement of undisputed facts and the argument. So those are the 2 that we'll spend the most amount of time on. And then last, but certainly not least, having a short conclusion. So again, feel free to copy these documents. So the big stuff that we'll be working on in class next week is how to draft your statement of undisputed facts and how to draft your argument. Now, here's the good news, as I mentioned in class earlier this week. You have the foundations of both of these sections already. So when we move from objective writing, like you did in your interoffice memo, to persuasive writing in a motion here, a motion for summary judgment, you can and should borrow from yourself what you have already drafted, but now we need to update it and add to it and make it persuasive and make it appropriate for a motion document. So don't just think you're going to cut and paste your facts and cut and paste your discussion section and your memorandum of law in support of motion for summary judgment is done. It's not, but you could start by doing that, by copying what you have, or you can retype it. I'll never know the difference when I see the final product. So a little bit about your statement of undisputed facts. We no longer just call the facts section facts. In a motion for summary judgment, we call them undisputed facts, because this ties back to the standard of summary judgment, which is a moving party shall be granted summary judgment when there are no genuine issues of material fact and the moving party is entitled to judgment as a matter of law. So in order to show the court that Donnie Davis, as the moving party, is entitled to summary judgment, we will need to show that there are no disputed facts. So therefore, we have a statement of undisputed facts, meaning these facts are not in dispute. Dispute meaning there's a difference, there's an argument, there's a difference of opinion here. In which case, if that was true, it would have to go to the jury. The case would have to go to the jury. So here in your statement of undisputed facts, what we want to do is still tell the story of Donnie Davis, but remember the complaint was from the perspective of Penny Peters. Now we are able to write it from the perspective of Donnie Davis. We want to be complete with our fact and not omit facts, even if there are facts that are not favorable to our client. We can't ignore or omit them because we get in trouble with the court. But we can still tell the story in a persuasive fashion. Here's the other big difference. We will now cite to evidence in the fact section. So I've listed for you here pieces of evidence that you have. We have the complaint itself, and we will talk next week about how to cite the complaint. For example, if you were to write a sentence that said Penny Peters was injured or something like that in a car accident, you could cite the complaint. So we cite that by writing the word complaint, and then we do the insert symbol where I can't see it because I'm blocking it using the I can't see it on my own. Oh, here, insert symbol. Let me see if I can do it really quickly. And my picture's in the way. Insert symbol, and then we do more symbols, and we can look for the paragraph symbol, which is here. And then we close and we put paragraph 5 or whatever it is. So we'll talk about how to do that on Tuesday. But every sentence in your statement of undisputed facts, did you hear me? Every single sentence should have a citation after it. Not a citation to a court case, but a citation to the evidence. So the evidence includes the complaint, because we need to refer to the specific sections of the complaint. The evidence includes answers to interrogatories, Cameron Crawford's deposition, and we could use also the police report if we want to use that as well. So we're going to learn how to tell the story, but using that evidence. The other big piece we'll talk about on next week is how to draft an argument section. So I wrote a lot of information here, but your argument section should contain 2 subsections. So I do want you to kind of work on playing with headings. So we'll look at this on next week's class, but you could have a section called Summary Judgment Standard, and then your section B is going to be the argument. So in the Summary Judgment Standard, you're going to have that summary judgment paragraph that we talked about in our last class. That every single court decision that decides summary judgment and every single motion for summary judgment that an attorney files contains in it a paragraph, sometimes 2 paragraphs, setting forth the summary judgment standard. That includes a citation to the relevant rule of civil procedure, which is 56. But I say relevant rule because remember, if we're in state court, we're talking about Massachusetts or whatever state rule of civil procedure. If we're in federal court, it's the Federal Rule of Civil Procedure, 56. And then a couple of sentences about what the standard is for determining whether there are material issues of fact. We'll see that in the sample document as well. The second part of your argument is going to be this part here, where you're going to now argue that Donnie Davis is entitled to summary judgment because there are no material issues of fact as to whether he either served alcohol, controlled the supply of alcohol, or knew or should have known his guest was drunk. So the other big piece we'll talk about in class is how you are in this argument section. You are still going to keep that IRAC format that you have. So if you're looking at your memo and you see you have IRAC number 1 on the issue of control, where you wrote something like Donnie Davis, the issue is whether Donnie Davis controlled the supply of alcohol. And then you have IRAC number 2, the issue is whether Davis knew or should have known his guest was drunk, or in the other order. We are going to take those exact IRACs that you have, and we're going to turn them into ARACs, assertion rule analysis conclusion, or contention rule analysis, where we then take the issue sentence, the issue is whether, and we turn it into a contention. And we'll learn how to do that. And the other big change is updating the analysis part of your IRAC, so that instead of just stating some facts, we are now going to use the same facts from our statement of undisputed facts and include the citations. Okay, I'm at the end of video number 1, to be continued in video number 2.